I see by the clock on the wall it is 7 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West, held in Council Chambers at 216 Main Street, Swanton, Manitoba, this 10th day of September 2024 at 7 p.m. Present this evening, myself, Reeve, Gade, Councillors Burick, Kushniryk, Blosha, McGregor, and Zbirun. Our assistant CAO, Kristi, Ronnquist, is here, and our videographer, Jeremy Bergen, joins us as well. We'll hop into the agenda at number 2. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held this 10th day of September 2024 shall be adopted as presented. Is there a mover? I see Councillor Burick, I also see Councillor Kushniryk. Any additions or changes to the agenda? Hearing nothing, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Number 3 is the minutes. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held August 27th, 2024 be adopted as presented. Is there a mover? Councillor Zbirun, and someone to second the resolution. Councillor Blosha. Copy of the minutes are attached to the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look through them? Does anyone need more time? Were there any errors or omissions noted? I will note in more general terms with the minutes, we have been going through them as we prepare for audit, and we believe there's one meeting the minutes were not approved for. So that's going to come forward shortly for a meeting from several months back to get them approved officially. But otherwise, pretty much everything's in order as we're doing that audit. If there's no further discussion, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. We'll go to financial items, general checks. Be resolved, the Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West hereby approves the following payments. General checks number 19966 to 20006 in the amount of $312,863.30. And pre-authorized debit number 2024-017 to 2024-018 in the amount of $301.18. And credit card payments number 2024-030 to 2024-035 in the amount of $1,703.75. And check number 20007 to 20011 in the amount of $43,631.72 for a grand total of $358,499.95. Is there someone to move the resolution? I see Councillor Burick, and I also see Councillor Kushniryk. I have a copy of the checks and the invoices here with us tonight. Who would like to go first with questions? Councillor Blosha.
Still looking.
Say it isn't so. A few things of note. Check 19966. You'll notice to 83 North Computers, but it's for $44, so it's under the $500 limit, so I'm not stepping out. That relates to the mailing of the notices to Benito. It was 6 cents a notice cheaper to do it on our account, so that's why we did it. Otherwise, we had to pay an extra fee for doing it manually. Go ahead.
19998.
19998.
Big one.
Fireboard.
There's a couple things on this. So this is the 2023 budget balance remaining for $56,000 and the second installment for 2024. So you remember at one point when that agreement got signed in October, that was the cutoff for billing under the old shared services agreement, and then the rest of the billing was done the other way. So that's the balance from last year, that 56. And then the 92 is the second half of the 2024 budget.
So what was the total budget, do you remember?
2024 would be 184 roughly.
Is it gonna be like that every year, you think?
Hard to say. There were some startup costs. I don't know what's planned. We haven't quite started budgeting at Fireboard yet. I know they're talking a draft budget's coming to our next meeting to look at. It's a little too early for the crystal ball to know exactly. I don't know that it would go down a lot, but hopefully it also wouldn't go up.
Because you're not saving as much.
Yeah, it's depending on the year. Right now we haven't had many fires.
Like when this started out, it was supposed to be $89,000 a year it was going to cost us to run this fireboard. 180 some, we could easily run our own fire department and,
No,
oh, for sure.
no.
How much does it cost to run Benito?
Well, Benito got a free truck, so if we were to run our own fire department and going to replace the trucks, we'd be $100,000 a year on truck replacement. We can certainly tell our 3 members on fire board to try and get the budget lower. Because ultimately, fire board's coming up with a budget and then presenting it back to us, and we have 3 of the 6 votes there. So there can be some work done there on what the budget amount should be.
That would be nice.
When is that coming up?
I haven't seen a meeting date yet. I was talking to the fire chief a couple days ago. He said him and the chair have been working through a draft, so they're ready to present for the next meeting.
Just to touch on another subject, did they fix that bill to that guy?
We haven't had a meeting yet.
Oh, okay, I was wondering, I was looking and I never seen it. I thought maybe they just fixed it on their own and,
I'd say be waiting for a meeting.
okay,
I would assume there should be a meeting. When was our last one? Wasn't
Oh.
it July or 1st of August?
yeah, something like that.
So probably September-ish, I would think, end of September, start of October, there should be the next meeting,
Okay,
be my guess. What's next?
No, I think that was the only one that I just wanted a little clarification on.
Okay, so our AMM fees are due, that's the $37.50 plus GST you see there to the association. We'll talk later in the meeting, the AMM meeting is coming up this fall, we'll be asking who's interested in going to that. I did speak to finance about the interest on the credit card. They assure me they're going to resolve that so the payment gets there in time. I think they've been waiting for us to approve the payment. I asked them to not do that, just pay it immediately so that we don't see that interest. So we'll try and sort that out so it goes away. You'll see a retainer to our law firm there. That's the second installment for the year. There's some beaver fees in there as well. Some freight from Gardewine. That freight is higher than I think it would normally be because there was some massive confusion in Public Works. They shipped all the materials to the wrong location. They were sending empties back, but instead of sending them to Winnipeg, they shipped them to Regina. So they went all the way around from Winnipeg to Regina, got to Regina. Regina said, no, these are supposed to be in Winnipeg, then shipped them back to Winnipeg. And we paid for the privilege of all of that. So hopefully we've learned from that. We won't do it again.
And then 19993, those are in and outs, kind of?
993, yes, those are
Yeah.
2 donations.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a separate item later tonight to approve the funding for,
Yeah.
but those ones are donations.
Okay. No, they looked at first. I was like, what is
You'll note the sign here check says decals for hard hats. That's now updated to be decals for hard hats and councillors' laptops. Because you all wanted stickers, so congratulations on those. The resurfacing of the bridge deck is in here for the 17,000 plus GST. Tax services here for all the updates on the tax sale. There's still quite a few properties in there. That's coming up October 17th, I believe. Some miscellaneous stuff for parks and such. And then that second batch of checks relates to things like the governmental union and such. Yes. Also attached, I guess we'll get to that in a second. Okay, any further questions on checks? Hearing nothing, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Payroll checks and indemnities aren't ready yet for tonight. Those will come forward next time for bank reconciliation. So there's a few things attached here. We have the actual reconciliation attached. This is the reconciliation statement for the end of August. So this is fully reconciled. It's only the 10th of September, which is pretty impressive that we're actually caught up on that stuff now. So that's showing what's outstanding for things that haven't yet been cashed and then anything that's not yet been deposited. So essentially it just shows you what the computer says our balance is and what the bank says our balance is and why they don't agree. There's also a copy of the August bank statement. There were some questions from some area residents if we would release our bank statement or not. Apparently some municipalities with the opinion that's confidential, but we did take a run through it. We couldn't find any indication of anything confidential in that statement, so we've released it in its entirety. So it's attached to the agenda if anyone wants to see what a bank statement looks like. A couple caveats there for someone that's reading for the first time. Some of our reserve funds are unfunded, which means the money for them is in the general account instead of the reserve account. So you shouldn't immediately assume the numbers you see in those reserve accounts are true. The actual reserve account balances are held by the general ledger here. The reason that exists is that if we had all the money in the reserve accounts where it should be, this time of year we would be into a line of credit. We'd be paying a lot of interest. So by keeping some of the reserve fund money in the general account, we don't pay interest to the bank because we never go into our overdraft. But that means that the reserve accounts don't always have the right amount. We do track it here, and so that's always available for what's supposed to be in the reserve accounts, and it shows up. There's a report that shows how much each one is short. So that's just something to remember, that isn't necessarily the full balance of them. I don't believe any have extra in them anymore. There was one that did, the LUD General Reserve, up until a few weeks ago. Even though money had been transferred in our books out of it, it hadn't technically come out of the account yet, so that was moved out of the account to get the balance to be the correct amount. Finally, the budget report is attached. This is fresh as of 3 p.m. today, so it's a new look at where we're at with budget numbers. Not a whole lot has changed in there. We're always desperately interested in the transportation services. When we get down near the end of, is it page 6, I believe, where we get into graveling. So we've spent $369 and change on haul and apply, 114 on supply, 24 on crushing. So we're closing in on where we're supposed to be. Our haul roads, we're showing we spent $47.6 on that. We haven't started crushing next year's gravel yet. Once we do, you'll see those numbers change some more. We'll probably talk about later on in the meeting, but I know there's going to be some questions on gravel supply. There is absolutely no gravel left. We purchased that extra gravel we were talking about last time. We didn't get as much as we wanted out of there. Somebody else bought some of that gravel as well. We only got about 2,000 yards of it, but that 2,000 yards has been hauled and applied. I don't believe the invoices for that gravel nor that application have come yet. There's certainly not anything I've signed off on, so they're not on this report yet. So that'll be appearing here in the next little while. So there'll be another several $1,000s from those. We do have a resolution. Do we want to accept the bank reconciliation and statement? Do you want a resolution? It's kind of an optional thing. We don't have to, but we can if people would like.
Do it, I do it.
Okay.
Do it, accept it, yeah.
Be resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West hereby receives the bank reconciliation of financial statements for the period ending, I'm going to change this to August 31st, because that's when the reconciliation ends. August 31st, 2024 as presented. Is there someone to move the resolution? Councillor Burick, and someone to second it. Councillor McGregor. Any further discussion or questions on any of it? I always encourage you guys, ladies, to read through that budget report, to get your mind around it. And if you have questions, you don't have to wait till the next meeting. Call me, text me, call Kristi, call Lois, discuss, because that's probably one of our most important things this time of year, is to be watching where we're going on that. Anything further? Hearing nothing, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. We're moving into discussion items. We'll start with 5.1. It's a subdivision request. We'll read the resolution and then we'll get into the actual discussion. Whereas the owners of part of the south half of section 1735-27 West has made application to subdivide a 13.81 acre parcel, requires approval from the Municipality of Swan Valley West as per community planning. And whereas the Council for the Municipality of Swan Valley West has reviewed said application, along with a letter received from Municipal Relations dated July 29th, 2024, and know that taxes on the property to be divided have not yet been paid, and further that the municipality has no objection to the aforementioned subdivision, therefore be it resolved that we do hereby approve the subdivision of the above noted property, provided that all conditions and requirements are met as included in the letter from Municipal Relations. Is there someone who would care to move the resolution? Councillor Blosha. Someone second the resolution? Councillor Kushniryk. A copy of the application is attached. This relates to Mr. Henkelman's property.
Is that their original yard site, or, because I don't have a picture, it's still
Yep.
spinning here.
Yeah, it's their yard
Is
site.
that their original yard site?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did speak to Mr. Henkelman about it a few weeks ago. He gave me a call just to go over what he was planning there. And it's pretty straightforward. Basically, the yard site, a little bit of the farmland around it because they're hoping to have some space there for a garden and such, which kind of makes sense. Which did put them over the 10 acres, which is why it's here for special approval. But it seems to make a lot of sense. It doesn't cause any access issues because we're not creating a parcel of land that's not against a road. At some point, there may be an approach to do, but overall, we're not going to be building any road or anything to do this. So we'll have tech support help you out there. Thanks.
No, mine's still spinning. It's the whole other picture.
Yeah, I think you should reset. It'll go out.
Reset, huh?
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh.
Any comments, questions, discussion about the subdivision?
Oh, it's good, though. It's good. I saw her picture.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Anybody else? Alright. Hearing nothing, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Next up, we have a request from CN Rail.
No, you have to-
Rail Safety Week is approaching. They've asked us to
you have to hold this
pass a
up.
resolution. Whereas Rail Safety Week is to be held across Canada from September 23rd to 29th, 2024. Whereas 229 railway crossings and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada in 2023, resulting in 66 avoidable fatalities and 39 avoidable serious injuries. Whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that railway rights of way are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with the highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways, and obeying established traffic laws will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. Whereas CN and Operation Lifesaver have requested Municipal Council adopt this resolution in support of its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, prevent injuries in communities, including our municipality. It's hereby resolved to support National Rail Safety Week to be held from September 23rd to 29th, 2024. Is there someone who'd like to move the resolution? Councillor McGregor, and someone to second it. Councillor Zbirun. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Thought they'd maybe send us a picture of a train for that, but they didn't seem to. 5.3. Be it resolved that bylaw number 0111-24, being a bylaw of the Municipality of Swan Valley West to establish a reserve fund for the community of Kenville, shall be read a third time this 10th day of September 2024, and be it signed and be signed by the Reeve and signed and sealed by the Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. Is there someone to move the resolution? Councillor Kushniryk. Someone to second the resolution? Councillor Burick. To lead off discussion here, you'll recall we looked at this bylaw last time around. So the community of Kenville, the hall there, is being settled with insurance for cash proceeds. I signed the paperwork for that late last week. So it's a little over $200,000 that will be received from the insurance company shortly. We agreed with their committee to put that money into a reserve fund, so it was held separately from other funds, basically to be held until some discussion is done of what to do with it. So the bylaw provides that we will have some sort of input from that committee, or at least from the people of Kenville, going forward on where that money goes to, so that it doesn't just disappear from Kenville. And then we still haven't heard the answer as to what they're doing with the hall. We still certainly suspect they're turning it over to us, but that will be found out here shortly, I suspect. Any other discussion?
And once that happens, what's going to happen to the hall?
We will have to decide. We've had at least one person express interest in purchasing it and renovating it. There's been some discussion here of fixing it. I don't know how serious that discussion has been. I wouldn't think that it's probably what's going to happen. I think it will probably be, the preference is not tear down if we don't have to, because it costs money to tear it down. If we could find somebody that we could make an agreement with to fix it up and use it for something, that would be ideal. There's been some discussion of salvaging the stage out of it and perhaps providing that to the museum for their new stage to kind of preserve the history of it. But it's something that council will have to spend some time discussing. Probably do some soul searching. I don't think we want to sell it off to somebody without some conditions of what has to happen. And that can be done. You know, if we were to sell it to somebody, we could say you have 12 months to do this, this, and this, and if it's not done, we're taking it back.
Yeah.
But we'd have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Because this is third reading of the bylaw, we're required by law
Recorded vote.
to have a recorded vote. So get that set up. I'm going to mark Councillor Neely as absent. For everybody else, those voting yes, if you can give me a show of hands, please. Appears to be all of us except Councillor Neely. So I've recorded that 6 yeses, 0 noes, 1 absent. And the resolution is carried. 5.4. Remember last time we spoke about one more account that needed to be added? Here it is. Be it resolved, the outstanding accounts as per the attached list of account numbers, service addresses shall be added to the respective rolls, being roll 320000, $492.11. Is there someone to move the resolution? Councillor Blosha. Is there someone to second it? Is it Councillor Zbirun? So this is a utility bill that's being added to roll. I will note with this, there's a couple options here. This could be added to roll, or this could be disconnected, but they've changed who's living in the home. So probably the fairer solution is to put it onto the roll rather than denying the new person water service, unless they pay somebody else's bill. So we debated that in the office for a while. Eventually Kristi won. I was ready to go turn the water off. But any further discussion? Hearing nothing, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. 5.5, Brown Bridge inspection. So this is a lot more discussion. There's a sample resolution here, but I'm not sure we'll use it. We've been discussing Brown Bridge here for the last little while. This is a report from 2020 from Peer Engineering. So this report was done at the same time as they were looking at a couple other bridges. It's a much longer report than this. We've just put the sections in here that related to the Brown Bridge. So this has some information on the Brown Bridge, about the inspection that was done and the state it was in. It was rated, well, close to poor, certainly not great by any means. So you'll see in the report the details of some rotting, various structural members that are damaged, repair work that's been done on it. It's rated fair to poor, is what they say. So there's a bunch of spans that are not great. Notice the asphalt issues. We've been looking through the file to see if there was any specific orders for how often it had to be inspected. We didn't necessarily find any. So Councillor Blosha had suggested every 5 years is what she could recall. So this was inspected in 2020, so we're coming quickly up to 5 years again, as you can imagine, like now. There's a lot of stuff here that was wrong with it already in 2020. And I think that's not necessarily news. There's been stuff wrong with that bridge for a while. But we wanted to give that to you so you have a chance to go through it. Do you want time and bring this back next meeting? Or do you want to discuss it further tonight? What's the preference of council?
Did you guys read up on it, check, you go through it or no? You go through the old inspection, you're talking about the 2020 inspection now. I went through it, I went through it today, but it needs a lot of work,
Nothing's been done on this list, has it?
No.
Everything except the Brown Bridge has been
Yeah,
done. Like where you
Whitman.
see
Yeah, the Brown
very
Bridge.
few- the Brown Bridge was not touched.
Yeah.
And it was kind of added, like the 2 projects that were on the go at the time were Crestfield and Water Bridge. That was to get them fixed because they were bad.
Yeah.
And then Brown Bridge kind of just got added on to this report as well. We need to check it too, so go look at it. The intention at the time wasn't to go repair it right then. It was to just know where it was at.
In repairing it, is that the whole top has to be replaced, or?
Isn't the underneath they're talking about? The
There's a
strand?
lot of stuff underneath is
Yeah.
bad. The other bridges, the top was replaced because so much had to be replaced underneath. The top wasn't in great shape on them either, but once that was stripped off and then the work was done and then it was put back, so it was easier to do the work. Probably Brown Bridge would be at least that, but those other bridges didn't have the pure problems the Brown Bridge has. You know, they were basically had good foundations, just the bridge needed work. Whereas this one, things are shifting.
I guess what I mean is the whole top taking off and then start from scratch.
Pretty soon
You
you're
know,
buying
like-
a new bridge.
So
Yeah,
years ago, we had the supports, like the supports underneath. They had cut, not to level the bridge out, they had cut them and lowered it, like,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's kind of,
kind of waving.
yeah, wavy, yeah. It's not, so you put asphalt on it, right away, what's it gonna do? Crack.
Yeah.
It's got to crack, it's not level.
I
So-
think it would have to be inspected again and
Oh,
then they
for
come
sure.
back to us. So that's what I would say
Yeah.
about it. No matter, the report here is let's get it inspected and see what we're up against.
Okay. So is it the will of council have it inspected yet this season?
Yeah, well, I
And
think
then
it's
we'll have the
time.
I think it's time too, yeah.
As long as if it's inspected, will they give us time to repair it, or will they close it off?
No, they'll give it
We don't
time.
know, we don't know,
We're the traffic authority.
we're the traffic authority, yeah.
We
But I
don't
mean,
have to be the ones
But I
to
think
close
that
it.
I'm seeing like his thought process. I think it's had so much done we didn't do in 4 years. If it's double as bad now, and they say,
Exactly.
hey, it's not safe now.
exactly, they could say we're closing it till something's done.
They
So
might
it's-
derate it, would be, like, they might say it's only good for a certain amount of weight.
So we'd have to restrict it.
There's a weight restriction on it right now, but I don't know, is it 10 tons?
So what do you wanna do? Don't inspect it and
No, 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 no.
have it, somebody go to the bottom of the river and then say, whoops?
No, all I'm asking is if they inspect it next year, will they close it, or will they give us time to fix it? But we don't know that, I guess.
I don't believe they will close the bridge because they don't have that legal ability. They could strongly recommend, they
Yeah.
could say, you're fools for leaving it
Yeah.
open, but ultimately, we would have to make the decision, so. And if they said, you're fools for leaving it open, well, we'd probably be fools if we left it open, but,
Exactly, that's-
we would still ultimately
Pretty
make the decision.
self-explanatory.
I think we'd be fools not to listen,
If you read some of the report, it actually says we're fools for other things.
Yeah.
They're pretty good at expressing that.
It's just that it should have been kept up over the years, but there's just nothing since, like you say, if that's 2020, that's 4 years with nothing done.
Well, I think part of from when I sat here in those discussions back then, as Councillor Blosha will probably feel the same, it was such a mammoth project at the time, even then, it wasn't sure if it could be repaired or if it had to be replaced.
And
And so to
there's,
start into it is, are you buying a new bridge? Because you may well be, there may not be a fixing of this. And that's not just 4 years ago, that's 20 years ago.
and there's two bridge projects on the go at the same time, which
Yeah.
are fixed, so.
But we better know what we're looking at here.
Well, it has to be, like, it's time to be inspected.
Because see, you have to the west, you have the PR bridge, right, 2 miles? And then you have the Big Woody, not the Big Woody, you call it the Hollow Crossing, the Crooked Bridge.
So were you suggesting closure?
No, I'm not, no, I'm not. But I mean,
Asking.
but it could be an easy decision to make, eh? Like it's,
So what we could do, like Pier can do the inspection, but they also, like Pier is part and parcel with the repair company too. So we could ask them to provide us just a budgetary quote.
yeah,
If we were to do something, we'd still have to go to tender. Their quote wouldn't be enough to do it, but they could give us a ballpark, probably within $50,000 or $100,000 of what it would cost to fix. So we have that in our mind as we start to think about it.
okay.
Would you want that done as well?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll ask staff to speak to Pier. I would suggest we sole source it with Pier simply because they did that 2020 inspection. So rather than us having some new engineer come and start from scratch, have the people that were there before look at it again, because they will be able to tell us what's changed a lot easier, I think. And then get a report from them on it. That works for everybody?
Yeah,
Okay, we will make that so. I don't think we're gonna bring a resolution on that tonight, so we'll just have that as a discussion item.
so when do you think we'll hear from them? Will it be next spring?
No, I would hope that, like, before the snow flies, it's time to inspect bridges.
Okay,
So,
good, good.
depending on when they have time, I don't know what the workload is. But, you know, if they have time in the next few weeks, they probably come before it snows.
That's good.
That report might be a month or two after that, but we will get the inspection done.
That's good, perfect.
Let's move to 5.6. Whereas Lynn Williamson has given her resignation as administrative assistant and senior election official effective September 11th, 2024. Therefore be it resolved that members of the council for the Municipality of Swan by the West do hereby acknowledge receipt of Lynn Williamson's resignation with regrets. Is there a mover? Councillor Blosha, someone to second the resolution. Councillor Zbirun. I don't know if you know, but Lynn has an exciting life ahead of her. She's off for some travels and some new adventures.
Good.
So she is leaving us because she won't be here to do those roles anymore. So we certainly wish her well. She's been a great help. She's been training Chelsea in the office for the last month or so. She's been doing really well with that, and I know her phone will be answered if we need to call her and ask some advice. So we wish her well in her future. Any further discussion? Hearing nothing, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Christmas party. So we have a resolution tonight for this. We have firmed up the date, November 30th, 2024. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West approves hosting of the 2024 Christmas banquet at the Durban Hall on November 30th, 2024, and further approves the costs associated with the event. Is there a mover? I thought I was going to hear some bah humbugs.
I'm waiting, nobody wants a Christmas party, what's wrong?
Who would like to second the resolution? Councillor McGregor. Discussion. We will be sending out invitations shortly, but it would be good if council could plan to attend. It's always nice to have council there.
And was, I think you spoke last meeting to the same format
Yeah, well,
as last year,
basically,
same
we
thing,
did
that was
last
good,
year,
yeah, that was really,
It'd be a
really
good time.
nice time.
Any further discussion? Hearing nothing, those in favor? That's carried. 5.8, the annual cemetery grants. These were provided for in the budget already. Be it resolved that the following grant payments as provided in the 2024 budget be approved for payout. Bozeman Cemetery Association, $500. Alpine Cemetery Board, $500. Riverside Cemetery Board, $500. Durban Community Cemetery Board, $500. Fairdale Cemetery, $500. Is there someone to move the resolution? Councillor Blosha, and someone to second the resolution. We'll take Councillor McGregor just because he hasn't been doing too much seconding yet tonight. So we annually grant some grants to these cemetery folks. One thing of interest, there was one of the cemetery boards was having a discussion with staff earlier about what happens if their cemetery board dissolves, because there's only a couple of them left. And so the answer is when a board dissolves, the cemetery falls to maintenance from Swan Valley West to the best of our abilities, which we would certainly do what we could for it and try to keep it up. But there's a reason why there's cemetery boards for most of the cemeteries, because they do a better job than we do. But that's the option that's always available. Any further discussion? Hearing nothing, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Sent to 5.9. So we have a resolution, but maybe we'll start with discussion on this. So we have bylaw 0112-24 tonight to look at for first reading. So this is a bit of a different bylaw than we normally see. This is an amending bylaw on a transitional basis. So as you know, a new development plan is in the works for the valley. That's in the process of being approved. And you also know that we have not updated our zoning bylaws. So we still have a Village of Benito zoning bylaw and an RM of Swan River zoning bylaw. So we're run by two bylaws. Both of those bylaws have had various amendments and changes and additions and corrections. And there's a string of bylaw numbers that now go together to make those. So this bylaw provides for another amendment on a transitional basis, presuming that we're about to come up with a bylaw that actually does the whole municipality in one shot. It does a few things. In section 1, it amends those existing zoning bylaws and adds a notwithstanding clause. It says notwithstanding any other provisions of this bylaw, so that would be the zoning bylaws, the following activities are restricted and may only occur with the written permission of the Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West. The use of any property to establish, operate, or continue to operate the activities commonly known as a homeless shelter, soup kitchen, or safe injection site. The use of any property to offer transitional housing, first level housing, or any such housing is contemplated by the Canadian Mental Health Association, be it a single or multiple dwelling. The transition of this commercial property, known as the Benito Hotel, to any purpose other than a traditional hotel that operates a restaurant, beverage room, and short-term rental accommodations, requires approval from council prior to conversion. For further clarity, this provision allows for the proprietor of the hotel to live in the facility, but precludes offering month-to-month or long-term rental of rooms without council's permission. Then in section 2, so we get out of the bylaw amendments now, just into terms, that harm reduction activities are classified as business activities within the Municipality of Swan Valley West. These activities include the provision of drug use supplies, drug paraphernalia, safe injection supplies, and the provision of safe drugs or drug alternatives. That any organization, person, or business undertaking harm reduction activities requires approval from the Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West to operate within the boundaries of the municipality. It is further required that any such approval shall require an undertaking that the holder of the license is responsible for cleanup costs for any discarded materials. That any person or organization contravening provisions of this bylaw is guilty of an offense may be punished by either summary conviction or by the administrative monetary penalty provisions of the Municipality of Swan Valley West, unless varied by resolution of council on a case-by-case basis. Contraventions of the provisions of this transitional bylaw, penalty amount is $1,000 per day, per location, per contravention. In addition to monetary penalties, the council may require by resolution that any prohibited activities be ceased and take steps to ensure that contraventions are resolved. The cost of any such measures may be applied to the tax roll for that property where the contraventions took place. Then an appeal for any decisions under these transitional provisions shall be heard by the council as a committee of the whole, unless otherwise provided for in associated bylaws, and that the provisions of this transitional bylaw shall expire upon repeal by provisions of the subsequent zoning and safety bylaws of the Municipality of Swan Valley West. So in more plain language, this restricts anyone from operating harm reduction or transitional housing or soup kitchens, homeless shelters, or the like in our municipality without council approving it in writing before it operates. Right now, our zoning bylaws do not do that. So you could operate a homeless shelter anywhere you so chose without us having anything to say about it. This would provide us a say. It certainly doesn't say those things can't happen. It says the council must approve them. So to gain our approval, I would suspect you'd have to convince us it's a good idea and that you have a plan in place for keeping everyone safe, and that would be in an appropriate location. Once you did those things, I'm sure council would have an ear to listening to you. But it wouldn't just spring up anywhere. The video hotel is specifically mentioned because it's going for tax sale in a few weeks' time. And there have been some strong concerns from surrounding property owners that it may be converted into a homeless shelter, and the provisions here would prevent that without our written permission. Thoughts, questions, discussion? Not hearing much, we'll bring the resolution forward and see where it goes. Be it resolved that bylaw number 011224, being a bylaw of the Municipality of Swan Valley West to amend existing zoning bylaws on a transitional basis, shall be read a first time this 10th day of September 2024. Is there a mover? Councillor McGregor, is there someone to second the resolution? Councillor Kushniryk. Further discussion. Where this goes from here obviously is 2 more readings. There's only 1 reading scheduled for tonight, so this needs some homework from council. Look at it, think about it. Revisions can be made. It'll come back for 2nd reading, possibly 3rd reading at the next meeting. So if you're thinking about stuff, you don't have to wait for the meeting. Send it in, talk to me, talk to Kristi. Let's get the editing done that we want to do. Councillor Zbirun.
Do we really want to get into somebody else's business? I know we got to look on both sides of the fence here, but if you were going to start your business, would you want to come to council and ask for their permission?
May not like it.
Where do we draw the line that we stop telling people where they can build, what they can do, what they can't do? I just thought.
The zoning bylaws do a lot of that already.
Yeah, but this is a business. This is, somebody could buy the hotel and use it for their outfitting. So they're bringing business into the town.
But they still have to come, they'd have to come to council, so if they brought it to council and they said this is what we're gonna use it for, I don't think there would be a problem.
I can't imagine there would be.
That's what that's about. You know?
I don't think we would unreasonably withhold permission for any of this. But if you came to council and said, we're going to buy the hotel and it's going to be a homeless shelter, it might be harder to get us to vote in favor of it.
Yeah.
And certainly you can operate it as it's always been operated without any permission whatsoever. You know, as the business has always been, this is exactly what that business has always been. It's just if it's to be changed to something else, it would require some approval. Part of the reason for the Burick Hotel thing isn't just the homeless aspect, it's also the massive liability it holds. If that building falls into disrepair, we're looking at $100,000 or more for demolition cost. So it's as much as we can do to keep that building going and not be demolished by us. You know, there's a very real possibility we're going to be demolishing the M&M Cafe, which is going to cost us a bundle already. And the hotel would be extremely expensive by comparison to demolish. And I would like to avoid that at all cost. You know, if we could, anything that's in that hotel that keeps it going and looks after
It
it.
would be a bonus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
But, and certainly council could approve anything going in there. They could approve a homeless shelter too. This doesn't say there can never be one, it just says council has to say yes first.
Yeah.
Further discussion. Hearing nothing, we'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Were you,
I was
you're in the bill?
Yeah.
It's not a report, so we'll call it carried no matter which way you were. There was
Okay.
enough the one way, so we'll let you have half a vote on each
Okay.
side.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're moving to correspondence, 6-1 office hours. This is mostly for council's information, so we're changing the office hours for a little while from September 16th to the 27th. We'll make sure we're open during lunch hour for those paying taxes. Also a reminder there of other ways you can pay if you don't want to come and stand at the lineup. We will do everything we can to limit the lineup this year, but sometimes it still happens. Mostly what causes the lineup is we have a limited number of staff and computers. And one person paying one tax bill works pretty good, but some people have 40 to pay, and so they take a little while to process. 6-2, bus stop sign request. This request was received, it's here for council's information. This is already working its way through the public works to have these signs installed. Councillor Blosha had noted before the meeting that there's at least one she knows of where there's no longer a bus stop there, so we'll probably go and reclaim that sign. And if folks know of any others that should be reclaimed, we can certainly go and reclaim some. From what I understand, we have stock enough to put these in anyway, but over time, if there's spare ones out there, we should yank them down because we don't want the complacency of there being one every single place when there's not actually a school bus there anymore. So it's good to keep them as current as we can. Let's move to 7, committee reports and communication. We'll start with Councillor McGregor.
Nothing to report for committee. I did take a drive by Kenville last night, and I'm still not seeing any progress on what we talked about last meeting. So, would like to find out what's going on there.
Okay, let's take part of that in camera.
Okay,
We'll discuss bylaw enforcement a little bit for that property.
okay.
Anything else? Councillor Zbirun.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Burick.
No committee report.
Councillor Blosha.
No committee reports.
Councillor Kushniryk.
Carry on.
Yep, pass popcorn.
I choose to see that as a term of endearment. A few things. I wanted to provide an update on the low bed. We approved that on our last meeting. It's here and being used. I think everyone's seen pictures of it. I think they were sent out to council. It looks nice. So the reminder is that every time we move the hoe with that, we're saving between $600 and $800. So at the moment, we're moving it a couple times a day right now. So we're in that $1,500 a day range of savings, which is somewhat true and false, right? Because we would never have moved it that often otherwise because it costs too much. But this is letting us move it everywhere we want it to be, which is part of the reason why we're about halfway through the culvert list now. So work continues there.
And approaches? Are they doing approaches?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
culverts and approaches
Those are
then.
just synonymous to me, so yeah.
Yeah, I just making sure, like, you're saying culverts, like,
No,
there needs to
yeah,
be
I
some
think the
approaches.
Who's running the whole chat?
I don't
Who's the
know
who
who it is
operator?
from day to day. I assume sometimes Chad, but I don't know if it's always him. We are working through the registration process on those culverts. It's proving to be a little more than met the eye, but the first batch of registrations is just about accepted. We're just dotting the i's and crossing the t's to make sure it's the way they like it. The second batch is ready to send. As soon as that's done, the third batch is almost ready to send. So once they've agreed fully to the format we're sending them in, they'll be getting a lot more registrations in. So that's all flowing through, which is important so we don't get fined. I was in Benito last week for water main flushing. So we only have a couple people right now that have the qualifications to do that, and all union members who are qualified declined the opportunity to perform the work. So I attended. I took Kristi with me the first day. I also took my kid with so we could learn how to flush water mains. So we spent a couple hours that day flushing. I went back the next day and flushed. Fred helped me out a bit there. So we have flushed the Benito water hydrants, and we found some interesting things. So there are a few hydrants in Benito that for several years have been marked during flushing as needs repair. What that means is they don't work, which isn't necessarily ideal should there be a fire. Two of those hydrants are the closest two hydrants to egg shield manufacturing, which, as you can imagine, would be unfortunate if neither of those hydrants worked, because the fire truck doesn't necessarily have enough hose to get to the third hydrant. So I did have the fire chief out to one of them, and he worked on it for a while. We did get it to open. So it's not ideal, but it is working, so we could assure ourselves there was water supply should something happen at egg shield. There's a couple other that aren't as critical. Matt Leslie used to do water treatment for the town of Swan River. He's moved over to Spruce Products, but he's also running his own business now, which is repairing fire hydrants. So I'm going to prepare a list for him to get him to go there and look at them. Mostly they can be solved with a kit you put in. So he's going to figure out what's wrong with these fire hydrants, what it takes to fix them. The thought is we probably don't have to dig. We're hoping to not have to dig, but he will look into that some and see what we can do. The good fire hydrants with one finger, they open, no problem. And then there's a couple of these that with all my weight on them, they just don't open. We didn't want to go further than that. If there was a fire, you'd hook a truck on it and yank it with a chain. But we don't want to do that for flushing and not be able to close the thing.
Yeah.
So we'll get them repaired because we can't leave them like that. Part of that is we did expect to start spending a little more on hydrant repairs to get them all brought up to current. So this is a good opportunity to start doing that. It's a little unfortunate, some of those notes are 5 years old, that they needed repair and they weren't done in the last 5 years. I can also share that we were eventually able to locate the records from last year's water main flushing. It was not completed. It was started, a few hydrants were done, and then it was stopped and it was never resumed. So the majority of Benito was never flushed last year. Staff aren't with us anymore that were doing that, but I did speak to them about it, and they said they ran into some difficulty and then never went back to it. So that was a little unfortunate to learn. You could certainly tell the difference in flushing. If you remember, we broke that hydrant off in the wintertime. All the pipes leading to it were sure sparkly clean. You flushed it really well in the winter. But the other ones that weren't on that route did take a little more flushing. But nothing was as bad as it's been in the past. The plant is doing a pretty good job right now, so it was pretty good. There was a note passed on to me earlier about the splash park. Some of that will probably go in camera, but the folks that quoted on the splash park have noted that there's a price increase coming in October. So if we order now, we avoid the price increase. I'm not suggesting we're ordering a splash park, but that's just a note that was passed along, so I wanted to mention it. Let's check my list here, see if there's anything else of interest. Coming up yet this week on Thursday, I have a meeting with the Chief Executive Officer, I suppose, of Prairie Mountain Health. So we're talking to her for a little while. She's new in that role. We're going to discuss some things here at the hospital. I did meet with Dr. Chesley the other night. Medical Services Committee took her out for a meal. We had a good hour and a half discussion about what it would take to have her located in the community. She's not sold on it yet, mostly because she's from Selkirk and her family's there, and her dad's got some medical concerns. And so she doesn't want to be 6 hours away from Dad right now. But she hasn't said no to Swan River either. She just hasn't picked a place yet. So we had a spirited conversation about what it would take to keep her here. And I did offer that if she returns, I would see if I could round up any single eligible farmers. Because she had some interest in seeing what was available in the area. She's looking for someone who has space for a horse. She quite likes horses. So I'm not completely joking. The conversation was had, and she did say, well, if they had a spot for a horse, I'd be willing to consider almost anything. So we'll see if she takes us up on it. The offer was made. She's working in Gimli for a little while now. She's just been going from community to community doing locum, but it sounded quite positive. She'll probably come back here for some more locum time. But she is looking for a community, so we'll see how that turns out for her. Back into right after last meeting, I spent some time with the union council, giving some direction in camera to discuss some matters with the union, so that was done. I have the responses I can share later. And so to the bridge, to the mail stuff, there isn't much else on the list there. So I believe that's my report. Councillor Blosha.
Greens picked up today?
We did not. We were down a fella.
Oh, okay.
So
I just
they're
had
gonna
seen
do it.
there was a notice that they were being picked up today. So.
Yes. I think tomorrow they're going to do
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Anything else? Discussion, questions, conversation? On the mowing front from Public Works, as you know, we're still down a mower. They've been working on putting some extra shift time on that other mower. That hasn't necessarily been going as well as it could for people accepting overtime. So we may have to look into what other options there are there for some casual position or something. To run that
Where's the
mower
mower
on
now?
fence. Is there a ditch someplace?
Because I saw the grass by Mazer's cut freshly, so he must be around here somewhere.
Must be,
So he's not in, he's done in the south?
as far as I know. Last I heard it was out Potton Drive direction, so it doesn't surprise me. It would also be on that side of town. And it's pushing north to finish off whatever isn't done.
That's good. How about scrubbing? Anything done there, or is everything's a standstill?
They've been doing culverts and approaches with the help.
So the skid steer sitting?
As far as I know it is.
It went to the landfill today, I believe.
Okay, for the landfill work?
Yep.
The landfill is going to be a lengthy in-camera discussion, but there is some concerns with the landfill. We went over that report last meeting. We've had Public Works out there trying to resolve some of that, but it's not as smooth a sailing as we would like yet. I think that's everything I have for that report. Anything else from anybody? Hearing nothing, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be going in camera. Tonight we will be discussing the work alone policy at the Benito landfill plus landfill issues. We'll be discussing the CAO role. We'll be discussing grader operator. We'll be giving some further discussions of the Benito Hotel for a different reason than was discussed earlier in the meeting. We've had a concern expressed there from the current owner. And I'm sure some more stuff will come up, but that's the highlights of our in-camera session tonight. So we'll take a 10-minute break and we'll get back at it when we're all returned. I will go to 8.1 in camera. Be it resolved that pursuant to section 1523, the Municipal Act Council shall meet as a committee to hold to close the meeting and continue discussions in camera regarding personnel matters, negotiations, preliminary discussions, investigation, enforcement of active bylaws, security of armed documents or property. So remover. Councillor Kushniryk and Councillor Burick. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We'll move to 8.4 on the agenda. Any resolutions arising from in-camera discussions? Go to number 9. Does anyone have a notice of motion to present tonight? Is there any other business for council this evening? Move to 10. Be it resolved that this meeting shall now adjourn at 9:01 p.m. Be it further resolved the next meeting is Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Moved by Councillor Blosha is first, and Councillor Zbirun is the seconder. Any discussion? Hearing nothing, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you everyone for a great meeting.